Daf Yomi, Tractate Menachot, page Samech Beis, Amud Aleph, 62b, Menachot, top of the page. 62A. Did I say 62B? 62A. Maybe I meant 60, I don't know, maybe the B was like a bet. 62A. Top of the page, with the words Ketzad Oseh. Ketzad Oseh, Meniachim Urabizas, Ayad, Nechaz V'shoik Alein, Uvechon Makom Sheyesh Lechem, Lechem Milemala. The Gemara asks, how does one perform the ritual of waving? First, he places the sacrificial portions on the palm of the hand and puts the breast and the thigh on them. And in any place, meaning with regard to any offering where there are loaves brought together with the animal, the loaves are placed on the top. Heicham Amar Rav Papa Milui. The Gemara asks, where is it stated that the loaves must be placed on the top? Rav Papa says this is stated explicitly with regard to the ram offering, to the ram offered at the inauguration of the priests. As the verse states, and he took the fat and the tail and all the fat that was upon the inward and the lobe of the liver and the two kidneys and their fat and the right thigh, and out of the basket of matzot that was before the Lord, he took the one matzah and one cake of oiled bread and one wafer and placed them on the fat and upon the right thigh. And he put it all upon the hands of Aaron and upon the hands of his sons and waved them for a wave offering before the Lord. Leviticus 8:25 through 27. My time ilem mishum nichsiv shakatruma v'chazei atznufo alishei achalovim yaviu leoniv tenufa yachsiv esachelev ala chazei yavienu. The Gemara inquires, what is the reason, meaning, from where is it learned that the sacrificial portions should be placed on the bottom and the breast and thigh on top of them? If we say it is because it is written, the thigh of heaving and the breast of waving, they shall bring upon the offerings of the fat made by fire to wave it for a wave offering before the Lord. Leviticus 10:15, which indicates that the breast and thigh are placed on top of the fats. That is insufficient. But isn't it written elsewhere, the fat upon the breast he shall bring, that the breast may be waved for a wave offering before the Lord? Leviticus 7:30. That verse leads to the opposite conclusion, as it indicates that the fats are to be placed on top of the breast. Omar Abaye, Hahu Dimesile, Kohen mi beis ha-mitbachayim, Ramile. Abaye said that second verse is not referring to the placement of the portions for waving. Rather, it describes their placement when the priest brings the parts of the offering from the slaughtering area in order to be waved. This priest carries the breast and thigh below the fats, and accordingly when he overturns these parts onto the hand of the priest who will wave them, the fat will be under the breast and thigh. V'hakisi v'yasimu es hachalovim al hachazos hahu diahiv le nechoid achrina v'azil umakter le. The Gemara asks, but isn't it written, and they put the fat upon the breasts, Leviticus 9:20, which also indicates that the fat is to be on top of, not beneath, the breast and the thigh. The Gemara answers that verse is referring to the stage when the priest who waved them gives them to another priest who brings the sacrificial portions up to the altar. Once again, the parts are turned over in this exchange so that the sacrificial fats are on top of the breast. And this third priest then goes and burns the sacrificial portions on the altar. The Gemara adds, and this teaches us that we require 3 priests to perform this service. 1 to bring the parts from the slaughtering area, 1 to wave them, and a 3rd to burn them upon the altar. The reason why all 3 acts cannot be performed by a single priest is because it is written, in a multitude of people is the king's glory. Proverbs 14:28. If a larger number of priests are involved in the temple service, this represents greater glory for God. Therefore, it is preferable for the service to be carried out by 3 priests rather than 1. ושתי הלחם ושני כבשי עצרת וכולי, תנו רבנן, הניף הכהן איסם על הלחם הביקורים. The Mishnah teaches, and the 2 loaves and the accompanying peace offering of 2 lambs brought on Shavuot also require waving. With regard to this waving, the sages taught in the Braita, the verse states, and the priest shall wave them upon the bread of the first fruits for a wave offering before the Lord, upon the 2 lambs. They shall be holy to the Lord for the priest. Leviticus 23:20. Yachol yoniach kevosim al gabi alechem. Talmud lomar al shnei kevosim. I al shnei kevosim yochol lechem al gabi kevosim. Talmud lomar al lechem habikurim. One might have thought that the priest who performs the waving must place the lambs on top of the bread for the waving. Therefore, the verse states, a wave offering before the Lord upon the 2 lambs, which indicates that the 2 loaves must be on top of the lambs. If the verse had stated only upon the 2 lambs, one might have thought the priest must place the bread on top of the lambs. Therefore, the verse states upon the bread of the first fruits, which indicates that the loaves are to be placed under the lambs for waving. Nishtake lakatuv en yodea im lechem al gabe kevosim im kevosim al gabe lechem ma matzinu b'chol makom lechem lemalo av kan lechem lemalo. Consequently, the verse is evenly balanced, as 2 contradictory conclusions can be derived from it. And I do not know whether the bread should be on top of the lambs or whether the lamb should be on top of the bread. The Braita resolves the contradiction, just as we find everywhere that waving is performed, that the bread is placed above the other portions. So too in the case of the 2 loaves and the two lambs, the bread is placed above the lambs. The Gemara interrupts its citation of the Braita to ask, where is it? Where is it stated that the loaves must be placed on top? Papa says it is stated explicitly with regard to the ram offered at the inauguration of the priests. Rabbi Yossi ben HaMeshulam, interesting, HaMeshulam, not Meshulam, I've heard that, but HaMeshulam. Rabbi Yossi ben HaMeshulam Omer, Kivasim lemala ma'ani mekayim al shnei kivasim lehoitzi shiva. The Gemara resumes its citation of the Braita. Rabbi Yossi ben HaMeshulam disagrees with the previous ruling and says, it is the lambs that are placed above and the two loaves beneath them. And how do I realize the meaning of the phrase upon the two lambs, which seems to indicate that the two loaves are to be placed above the lambs and not under them? Rabbi Yossi ben HaMeshulam explains this verse teaches that the requirement to wave the lambs together with the loaves applies only to the two lambs sacrificed as communal peace offerings on Shavuot, to exclude the 7 other lambs brought as burnt offerings, which are not to be waved with the loaves. Chanina ben Chanichai Omer. Chanina ben Chachinai. Chanina ben Chachinai Omer. Many Yakshte Halechem Ben Yaakov Sehen Shelgavos Yimeniav Nimsa Mekai Venimsa Mekai Mishneim Mekoi Salalu Lechem Malgavi Gavosim Gosim Malgavi Lechem Omar Yana Lefnei Melech Basudam Eno Osin Kain Lefnei Melech Malchim Lachi Baruch Baruchu Osin Kain Ela Meniach Zeh Betzad Zeh Menif. Chanina ben Chachinai says, see it here, Chachinai, yeah, says that there's a different answer. The priest placed the two loaves between the thighs of the two lambs and waves them. And in this manner it is found that he realizes the meaning of both of these verses, as the bread is on top of the lambs and the lambs are also on top of the bread. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, in objection to this opinion, one would not do so, meaning place bread that had been placed between the thighs of the lambs but before a flesh and blood king. Should one do so before the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He? Rather, it apparently wasn't respect, I guess, that's what he's suggesting. Rather, he places the two loaves and the two lambs alongside each other and waves them together, thereby fulfills the requirements of the verses in a respectful manner. V'habin al Amar lei Rav Chizda. Amar lei Rav Chizda. Where were we? Amar lei Rav Chizda Rav Hanuna. Amar lei Rav Hanuna Rav Chizda. Rebbe letamei Amar al bisamu. See here. The Gemara raises an objection to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, but we require fulfillment of the term upon, all in the verse, either by placing the bread upon the lambs or the lambs upon the bread. In response, Rav Chizda says to Rav Hamnuna, and some say that Rav Hamnuna said to Rav Chizda, with this opinion, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi conforms to his standard line of reasoning, as he says that the word al can mean next to. Okay. The Tanya al Amareches Levoy Nazako Rabbi Omer al B'samuch Ata Omer al B'samuch O Eno Ela al Mamash Keshu Omer V'sukota al Aaron et Haparoches Have Omer al B'samuch. This is, as it is taught in Braita, with regard to the showbread, the verse states, and you shall put pure frankincense upon each row. Leviticus 24, verse 7. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says, all in this instance means next to. The Braita asks, do you say that all means next to, or perhaps it means only actually upon? The Braita explains when it says, and you shall put there the ark of the testimony, and you shall place a cover over the ark with the curtain, Exodus 40, verse 3, which we read today. The word all cannot mean upon, as the curtain that separated the sanctuary from the Holy of Holies was hanging near the ark, not placed on top of it. Therefore, you must say all means next to. Molich umevi male morid v'chule amar Rav Chiya v'Rabba Rabbi Yochanan molich umevi lefi sheharuchos shelo male morid lemi shashomayim v'oretz sheloi. The Mishnah teaches that the 2 loaves and the 2 lambs are waved in the following manner. The priest places his 2 hands below the lambs, extends them to each of the 4 directions, and brings them back, and raises and lowers them. Rabbi Chiya bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says he extends the lambs and brings them back in order to dedicate them to he to whom the 4 directions belong. He raises and lowers them in order to dedicate them to he to whom the heavens and the earth belong. B'marava masnu hachi amar Chama bar Ukva amar Rav Yossi bar Rabbi Chanino moilich umevi kedei latzor rois Maleu moirid kedei latzor tilalim ra'im. In the West, Eretz Yisrael, they taught the idea like this. Rabbi Chama bar Ukva says that Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina says he extends the lamb and brings them back in order to request a halt to harmful winds and storms that come from all directions. Similarly, he raises and lowers them in order to halt harmful dews and rains that come from above. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Avin Zoi Soy Meres Shioi Mitzvah Me'akmias Apuanos V'hatinu Fashioi Mitzvahi V'teras Ruchois Rois Utloli Moim Amar Rabba V'chein Lulav. Rabbi Yossi bar Rav Avin says that is to say, meaning it can be derived from here that a non-essential mitzvah helps prevent calamity, as waving is a non-essential mitzvah. Even if one failed to wave the loaves, he has fulfilled his obligation, and nevertheless waving halts harmful winds and dews. Rava says, and one should conduct himself similarly with a lulav on the festival of Sukkot, meaning he should extend and bring back and raise the lower lulav and lower the lulav for the same reasons. Rav Acha bar Yaakov mamte le umaisile umach ve'hachi ve'amar gira be'ena nisnesitenam belav milsa hi mishum de'asi ris gore be. The Gemara relates Rav Acha bar Yaakov would extend and bring back the lulav in this manner and would say, I am hereby shooting an arrow in the eye of Satan. As despite Satan's best efforts, the Jewish people continue to fulfill the mitzvot joyously. The Gemara comments, it is not correct to say this because this will induce Satan to come to incite the Jewish people to sin. Gloating about his victory over the evil inclination will lead Satan to redouble its efforts to corrupt them. Tanu Rabbanan Zivchei Shamin Tzimo Tunin Tunufa Leachar Shchita Utunufa San Kemos Shehe Divrei Rabbi Yochanan B'Chazak B'Shoy. The Gemara continues to discuss halachot concerning the waving of offerings. The sages taught in the Braita the communal peace offerings which were brought on the festival of Shavuot and which must be waved while the animals are still alive also require waving after their slaughter, and their waving after their slaughter is to be performed as they are, meaning that the whole animal must be waved as was done when it was alive. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. And the rabbis say one does not wave the whole animal, rather the waving is performed only with the breast and the thigh. B'may kamifligi amar le Rav Chizda le Rav Hamnuna amar le ve'amri le Rav Hamnuna Rav Chizda badun mina umina badun mina okay basre kamiflagi. The Gemara inquires with regard to what principle do Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi and the rabbis disagree. Rav Chizda said to Rav Hamnuna, and some say Rav Hamnuna said to Rav Chizda. They disagree with regard to a principle about the application of verbal analogies. One adopts the exegetical principle, infer from it, and derive the details from it, meaning that when one case is derived from another by means of a verbal analogy, all the details of the source case are applied to the second one. The other sage accepts the principle infer from it, but interpret the halacha according to its own place, meaning that one derives only the specific detail referred to by the verbal analogy, and all other aspects of the source case are not applied to the other case. Rabbanan savri dun mina umina umazivche sham yachid tunin tenufa lachar shchita avzivche sham etzibo tunin tenufa lachar shchita umina ma hasam. The Gemara elaborates the waving of communal peace offerings is derived from the waving of individual peace offerings through a verbal analogy. The rabbis maintain, infer from it, and derive the details from it, leading to the conclusion just as individual peace offerings require waving after slaughter, so too communal peace offerings require waving after slaughter, and derive the details from it, just as there in the case of individual peace offerings, the waving is performed with the breast and thigh alone. So to here, with regard to communal peace offerings as well, the waving is with the breast and thigh alone. Rabbi Savar dun mina v'okeh b'asrei ma zivchei sham yachid te'unin tenufa lachar shchita al zivchei sham tzibur te'unin tenufa lachar shchita v'okeh Yasrei Asam Hu Dechaze Vishok Abal Hacha Kemos Shehen Bachayim. And Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi maintains, infer from it, but interpret the halacha according to its own place, meaning that the basic halacha of the verbal analogy is accepted, just as individual peace offerings require waving after slaughter, so too communal offerings require waving after slaughter, but interpret the halacha according to its own place. It is only there, in the case of individual peace offerings, that the waving is performed with the breast and the thigh alone. But here, in the case of communal peace offerings, the waving is as they are, meaning the animals are waved whole as they were when they were alive. That concludes 62a. Stop here.